Greetings all. This is Hairy Nick.
And this is a less hairy Justin.
He's
coming
here.
From this room.
That's right.
Not the other room.
Not the
This
other
one.
room. That's right. So we are in the same place.
It's only taken us...
1 million years.
Yeah.
Yes, our state's come out of lockdown, so we can now hang out at each other's house and give each other's all the diseases that we want, which is very, very useful. And yes, I know, Justin has gotten way hairier. So basically, you've got the beard.
Yeah.
I've got this. Between us, we are Chewbacca. That was always my intent. That's why you're on the channel.
Yeah.
That's why you're on the channel. We have some very somber news to talk about today. Well, somber. It's somber in some ways. I think I really want to start this video out talking about, yes, we're talking about the shift from FFG to Atomic Mass Games with the Star Wars IP miniature games. X-Wing Armada Legion, obviously, we're predominantly X-Wing channel, so we'll be talking about this through the scope of X-Wing. More important than anything else we're going to talk about today is the fact that people have lost their jobs. That is bigger than anything that we talk about on the channel. That's bigger than the funny little games that we play here on YouTube. And that sucks, especially right now in the pandemic. Like, it's a bad time to be losing your job. No doubt about it. Let's get that said straight away. That sucks. And I really feel for everyone that's lost their job. We know at least one person involved with X-Wing have lost their job. I'll talk about that briefly during the video. But yes, that sucks. And I hope everyone that's been affected by that lands on their feet. And they're talented individuals, so they should.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So, yes, basically, Atomic Mass Games, who, if you're not aware, have basically existed, it seems, as a way to take the pressure off FFG in their production of miniature games. Was it 2 years ago we got the Marvel license?
I thought it was it must be 2 years ago.
It feels like around at the same time second edition came out. Yeah. Basically, what happened was Asmodee got the license to make Marvel games as well as Star Wars games, which is not surprising. They're both owned by Disney, so it makes sense that they go under the same umbrella. But FFG did not get the miniature game in Marvel Crisis Protocol. They gave it to a new company, Atomic Mass Games, who is essentially made up of several people who have been in the industry for a while.
FFG did get a card game based on Marvel, but they didn't get the miniatures.
Yes. At the time, I thought that was interesting. I think now, with hindsight, we can say, oh, okay, it kind of makes sense. Now that they're moving their Star Wars miniature games over to Atomic Mass Games, it looks like the whole intention was to go, okay, let's see if we can just separate these studio out, get FFG to focus on their other games, their card games, their board games, and that kind of stuff, and let the new studio take over this role. It could have been the case that Asmodee just make FFG bigger and bigger and bigger, but I just get the impression, with what's going on with FFG, what's happened with their distribution issues over the years, that kind of stuff, that Asmodee just wanted a separate company to focus on that kind of stuff.
Which makes logical sense.
Indeed. There seems to be growing pains in FFG. They did bring out the interactive studio, the game studio FFI, a couple years ago, and they made the Lord of the Rings card game, which, by the way, is awesome. You can get it on Steam. It's really, really cool. I think the base game is free, but you can buy in-game content. Really, really fun, but unfortunately that didn't take off, and they just made the one game, and now that's it. Which sucks, because I was really hoping we might get a digital version of X-Wing or something one day, which would be really, really cool. I mean, I know we unofficially have a digital version of X-Wing, but an officially supported version of that game would have been really, really cool. FFG, I feel have done a lot of things right with these games, specifically when it comes to development. That's where their real strength has lied. But the distribution, especially when it comes to Legion, that's been the biggest struggle this year.
Yeah, apparently there's been characters that have been brought up that have only been coming out in the US and not being distributed elsewhere,
or just in
things
ridiculously short supply. And that might have something to do with COVID again, but at the same time, it sucks. You just can't make a game and then not have people get it. It sucks. It was one of the things that people cite when Destiny was sunsetted by FFG. They said, well, the biggest problem with Destiny was the card supply was so low. And there's a secondary market factor with that when you have like randomized card packs. So it's a bit of a different thing.
Yeah.
So of course, when supply is so low, the secondary market just flourishes and everything's so expensive. But then, of course, if everything's so expensive, then the card game dies.
Yeah.
Which is surprising when you think about Magic the Gathering. But let's not talk about that. So yes, that is the biggest hurdles FFG have undertaken. So when we look at what Atomic Mass Games have done with Marvel Crisis Protocol, how quickly they've managed to get their expansions out and how well they've supplied them, I think that's a positive we can take out of this.
Well, not only that, the quality of the minis as well have been
Yes.
absolutely on point.
Yes, I know a lot of the early Legion sculpts got a lot of criticism, and they've gotten better, to be fair, now that they're on plastic sprues and all that kind of stuff. I know it was Princess Leia early in Legion that people were really criticised. The face just didn't match Carrie Fisher at all, which, you know, fair enough. It's not something you want when you have these iconic characters. It's just one of those things, and maybe the shift over to this will be a positive thing. But what I am concerned about more than anything else is the change in development. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat this and say I'm really excited to see what the future holds. I am actually very concerned about this because we know at the very least, and before we have a look at these press releases from Atomic Mass Games, we do know that Alex Davey has been fired from FFG and has not transitioned across to Atomic Mass Games.
No, and
that sucks.
Yeah,
like not gonna mince words here. That sucks. This guy is basically the person that spearheaded Star Wars Legion. He's one of the 3 major developers on X-Wing. Now, we don't know about the other 2 guys yet, so fingers crossed, you know, they transition across and maybe they are afforded more leeway in the team they choose and that kind of stuff. Maybe this will be a very positive thing overall, despite losing Alex Davey, but nevertheless, like hearing that guy talk about the development of X-Wing.
He just loves X-Wing.
That's it.
He lived and breathed it. Alex has been with FFG for 8 years.
Yeah, if you listen to some of his interviews, he talks about how he was there when it was announced at Gen Con and he joined the development team a little bit later on. He was one of the people that really recognised some of the problems with the game early on. He saw what was happening with Biggs. Even before Biggs was in the meta, he was like, no, this bad. Don't do this kind of stuff. You can see why he developed the game into second edition, along with the other 2 guys, obviously. I'm not taking credit away from them, but we're talking about Alex here because he's the one leaving. At least we know he's the one leaving. We hope the other guys are still there. And this is what I'm concerned about. It's great if we can overhaul the development cycle of this. We can hopefully get better supply, get more consistent supply, get release dates met, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think a development refresh is what this game needs right now. It certainly doesn't need a 3rd edition.
No.
I know people are sort of talking about that, and it may happen. We don't have any confirmation about that kind of stuff. But right now is not time to refresh the game again.
No, I think if they do that again, they are going to lose a lot of people.
And we know like a lot of people dropped off because of 2.0, and that's fair enough. Like I'm not saying you should stay with the game, even though it's gotten a lot better. And in my opinion, it has gotten a lot better because of 2.0. They fixed up a lot of problems from 1.0, and I think overall it's a net positive that we've gone to second edition. But I just think there's not enough upside to do it again.
No.
And I'm really hoping that Atomic Mass Games just say, hey, let's just take this. Let's just continue to support 2.0. If they really want to make a 3rd edition, if they can identify certain things that they don't like, do the same thing that the guys at FFG did. They noticed, they said like they had a binder of things they didn't like in 1.0, and they built up and they built up and they kept collecting things and they kept spitballing ideas for the next edition, and they waited until the time was right. Yeah. They didn't just pull the trigger and do it straight away, because that would have been around about the time Scum came out. So like a good 1.5 years before second edition came, which would not have been right. And in any case, in X-Wing second edition, we're at a point where we've just started to really fill out all the 7 factions. We're in a bit of like a free space in terms of what they can do.
Yeah.
So I just really want them to have a look at what they've got, and design new and fun ships that just amplify the game, just add to the game, add a bit of salt and pepper on top.
Not too much salt, though. We
no, not too much salt.
Episode 8, we don't want salt.
No, well, it's Star Wars in general. It doesn't need any more salt. Let's be honest, man. Let's be honest. And if we're going to get positives out of this, it's going to be, yes, they're going to hopefully get to a point where they're releasing things alongside the Disney IPs a lot faster. We still don't have a Razor Crest. It came out last December.
Yeah, it almost seems a bit ridiculous right now, doesn't it?
Yeah. When Episode 7 came out, FFG, bang, got the Force Awakens core set alongside it. So whatever's happened at FFG hasn't been conducive to getting stuff out efficiently. So that's where I really hope Atomic Mass Games sort of pick up the slack, and that's... With the development stuff, I just hope they know what they're dealing with. I hope they realise that X-Wing is quite literally lightning in a bottle. And they have to appreciate that, and they have to go forward with the care of the game. Just closing this video out, we're going to actually read the press release from Atomic Mass Games and FFG about all of this. So this was first posted on November 16. It talks about all the kind of stuff. By the way, like, when we first read this, we didn't know Alex Davies was leaving. So the reason I was concerned when I saw this is because we did have confirmation of one other individual. And Simone Elliott, obviously a very important part of the team, the person credited as shepherding Fantasy Flight's relationship with Lucasfilm. So, yes, this is the person that not only makes sure they got the license in the first place, but is going to make sure they keep the license.
Very, very important person.
Kind of a big deal. Yeah.
I was going to say one of the top 3, but maybe top 4.
Absolutely, yeah. So they've spoken about in this article, and we'll post the links to these down in the description, about how we're bringing across most of the development team. I think, in hindsight, we can see why they said that.
Yeah.
If they had brought the 3 X-Wing designers across, they would have just said their names. They would have done it by name. Hopefully this means that, no more. I want my boys. Indeed. And it talks about, like, them in general, about who they are with Atomic Mass Games. There's not really much information here. I'm not going to read it off the screen. You can read the press release yourself. But yeah, just very interesting stuff, but not much in way of information. Now, a day later, we did get a Q&A as well, which is answering some questions. But I thought it was interesting. Sort of. So the one question I had was literally, is Alex Davies staying? And this didn't answer it. So I'm like, that's not a good sign. But it did answer a couple of things. Let's start with the most obvious question. Fantasy Flight has launched and maintained 3 incredible successful Star Wars games. Why the move to Atomic Mass Games? In a word, specialisation. So, as I said before, it was about making this new company specifically to take the load off of FFG. It seems to be the case. For whatever reason, Asmodee wasn't, I guess, not happy with what FFG were doing, and I think that's good, considering they've basically taken out of FFG those core elements, put it in this new company, hopefully giving it the chance to grow with new people and just fixing up some of the issues FFG was having. So
yeah,
I think that's a good thing. And I think the big thing out of this article here, can we expect changes to any of these 3 games? One of Atomic Mass's core philosophies is that there is no finish line. We see ourselves as a lifelong journey of learning and improvement, which is a good thing. That should be the attitude of everyone on YouTube in game development. Always learn. Don't think that you've ever stopped learning. It's a pretentious way of saying yes. So, yeah, it looks like we're going to be seeing changes, at least to some of these games. I don't know. Like, it doesn't mean that we'll get a second edition of any of them in particular, but I mean, what do you think of that?
I mean, I'd really like it if Legion ended up doing the sequel trilogy as well.
Absolutely. I think that's something that is going to eventually happen. I always thought it would.
Yeah.
My big thing is thinking about like an Armada 2.0, which is not, again, it's not necessarily the best time to do it.
No, we're sort of in an Armada 1.5 at the moment.
Yeah, because they're bringing out the Clone Wars. But again, talking about distribution, one of the biggest issues with Armada is it's lacked support for so long. And like Clone Wars, everyone's seeing it as a chance to really invigorate the franchise. And if this means not only do Armada get the Clone Wars, but actually get more constant support, that could be a really good thing.
They'd be real happy.
Yeah, my biggest issue with Armada is it's been around almost as long as X-Wing, and it didn't have that same refresh as X-Wing, so you've got the physical printed cards with the points and all that kind of stuff. It would benefit from that, and it would obviously give them a chance to clean up some of the mechanics. I don't know about Armada, I don't play it myself, but perhaps that's one thing they're eyeing off, going, hey, look, we saw what happened in X-Wing, that really helped the health of the game, maybe in Armada we'll do that at some stage. And hopefully, if that happens with any of these games, it's going to be done at least as smoothly as it did under FFG, where they just give you conversion packs and that kind of stuff. That's always a big question mark with these kind of stuff. And
definitely.
I breathed a big sigh of relief when I saw FFG were making conversion packs from 1 to 2 with X-Wing. Because we've seen it with some companies where it's not done well, like under like Warhammer and stuff, where the size of the bases change. So either you rebase all of your friggin' minis or you buy new ones. Yeah, don't like that. Nope, don't like that.
Well, not only that, like they just print better versions of the minis as well.
That's true.
And they're just like, oh look, this is the new better Ultramarine, and you're like. So these guys that, I've spent years playing with, painting, and they're now chaff.
It's not cheap, Badness, yes. So that's always the big question mark when it comes to refreshing and changing games in general. Like, you've just... fingers crossed. It looks like Atomic Mass Games knows what they're doing. I'm not saying, it'll definitely be bad. I'm just saying, hey, we knew the development cycle of X-Wing. There was a steady hand guiding it in the background. It had issues in the company as a whole, but hopefully they really appreciate what they've got.
Well, yeah,
that's
we always
what I want to say.
We had that knowledge of like there would be things coming out once every 4 months. It may not always work, but it was around that time, and we could plan accordingly.
Indeed. Oh, last but not least, do they plan on making any new Star Wars games? And they basically just don't answer the question, so that's fine. Pretty much where FFG was, but. Again, because we've got a new company that is allowed to focus on Star Wars miniature games, maybe that'll give them more breathing room to potentially make some more games. I, for one, would love to see a pod racing game.
Yes.
And I know that's really dumb and niche, but I just want to see that.
Well, I'd also like to see a racing game with some of the pilot ships as well.
I agree. Like, take the minis from X-Wing. Yeah, that'd be great fun. But that might work better as a board game. Maybe that's still in the scope of FFG. Just want to close out this video by saying... thank you to FFG, you've done a great job. However, having said that, it's the individuals that count, not the big corporation. So thank you to everyone that's been involved with FFG, whether or not you're moving across to Atomic Mass Games.
Yes, thank you from the bottom of our hearts as the players.
Yes, and thank you especially for me, who's made such a career out of talking about X-Wing. So please... continue to make X-Wing, continue to make your board games. FFG, I will still cover their board games relating to Star Wars as much as I see fit. Obviously, we don't always talk about things outside of X-Wing, but I'll talk about like new things and that kind of stuff. And yes, Atomic Mass Games.
Good luck.
Do a good job. Do a good job. We demand it.
Yeah.
We demand the best because you've been given something very special, and I don't apologise for that. In the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. If we have any more developments about this, I might make another video, depending on how significant they are, especially when it relates to like other devs and what's happening with them. So in the meantime, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff. Social media and the Patreon for the channel down in the description below if you want to be part of that. Thank you all who are supporting that already or just subscribe to the channel. It means quite a lot. Me and Justin, IRL, will catch you all in the next video.
Bye.